Yes, we're very excited about JGID Forms. Opens a lot of doors and has given us a lot more options in regards to customizability. Any client can have any form they want in their app now. It comes with all the functionality from like basic drop-down menus to if this then that scenario. So typical question would be, is there any corrective action required? If you say no, you just tick a box. If you say yes, another one comes up and says, well, describe the corrective action, take a photo if required, obviously signatures and so forth. A really handy one that the people love is you can annotate photos right within the app. So if I'm doing, say, a defect report, for example, I could go, okay, well, here's defect number 1. Let's say it's drummy render. I can take a photo of the wall, but then I can highlight which section of the wall might be drumming, and then I can make recommendations for the repair. And always your standard report, you might have your 10 defects as a drop-down menu rather than having to write them in manually every time. Same with, for example, the corrective actions, like if it was your typical 10 answers, well then you make them a drop-down menu versus a text field. But if you want to make it a text field, then you make it a text field as well if you don't know what you're going to encounter. So our clients use it for customized pre-start toolbox talks or very tailored pre-start risk assessments as well. So you can have a toolbox talk, incident report, standard operating procedures, request for leave, defect report, confined space access permit. But yeah, the one that I like the most at the moment is the anchor recertification. I've developed one there which just made it so quick to do a really detailed report, where previously it would have nearly been impossible to do a report like that, or it would have cost a fortune, or you would have not made any money on the recertifications. But essentially what you do is you go and you tag the anchor. You get anchor tags with QR codes on them, so every tag has its own unique identifier and its own unique QR code. Scan the QR code, take a photo of the anchor, fill in all the fields the first time, and then it duplicates all the information. So you literally just scan the QR code, take a photo, pass, go to the next one, scan the QR code, take a photo, and then pass and go to the next one. So first time around, you've got captured information, but then when you come to recertification time, you just walk around and again you just scan the QR code and you take a photo of the anchor, and then that produces a report with a photo of every anchor point, load rating, what it's been tested to, and so forth. And then you can also record any observations. If, for example, there might be a section of the roof that's not compliant, or something's changed, or recommendations for further installations. You do your inspection on the roof and you've just done all the paperwork in the office. So every inspection you're saving at least an hour or two of paperwork. You've got evidence of how the anchor was installed. A scenario where one of our clients installed anchor points. They're surface mount anchor points, and so you need to have like gazebo rivets going into the anchor, but then you also need 2 Tek screws going into the structure, either into the timber or the metal purlin. So they did all the installation, they photographed all their anchors so that they had evidence of how they were installed. Turns out, a few months down the track, someone had to go onto the roof and do some work. So the roofer had to remove the roof sheet to get underneath the roof. So they drilled out all the rivets, removed the anchor point, removed the roof sheet, did what they had to do, put the roof sheet back, and then they put the anchor point back. But then rather than using the appropriate rivets, which have something like 750 kilo load rating each, and you put at least like 8 or 12 or whatever anchor rivets into the anchor, they just put Tek screws into everything. Now obviously a Tek screw installed into nothing like that, if someone were to abseil off it, or worst case scenario even have a fall on it, there's a very high likelihood that anchor point wouldn't hold. So a year later another company came around to inspect the system and recertify it, and then they come across this dodgy installation, and obviously they flag it and say, well, this is not an appropriately installed anchor point. They flag it to the owner of the property, and the owner of the property then of course goes and complains to the original installer and says, you've done a dodgy job. So thank God they had evidence of that anchor point being installed properly the way you should as per manufacturer's guidelines. And then that's how they eventually found out that someone else actually removed it because they had remedial.